Welcome to Emerging Ease, where we will focus on unraveling the difficulties in the midst of our journey and move toward forward progress. This program is not meant to replace any form of therapy, and you are encouraged to seek out a mental health professional if necessary. Keisha. Thank you for tuning in today. As always, if you have any questions or comments, um, please feel free to put it in the chat, or you can always email me at emergingease@gmail.com. Also, I want to remind you, if you missed the show, if you miss a portion of the show, or you just want to go back and watch it again, please feel free to go to thebatchelornews.airtime.pro, where all of our shows that are actually on Bachelor News will be able to be rebroadcast. All right. So come on in and let's talk. Today I'm going to talk about resources. For several weeks, let's just say it, for a year now, we have been talking about all kinds of mental health concerns. Um, People have shared, and I appreciate all the sharing. People have asked questions, but one thing I had not touched on fully yet was resources. Like, where do I start? Where can I start? Because I always tell people, hey, if you feel like you have a mental health concern, find a therapist, reach out to a therapist. So let's talk about what that looks like, the steps you can take, because it's a very daunting task. It's one thing to say, hey, just go out and do it. It's another thing to get past the fear of what that's going to look like for me. Who is available that can speak to me about things that I'm dealing with? Who can actually connect with me? Many people find that it is easier, not necessarily necessary, but it's easier to connect with people that look like them. With that being said, there are many ways to find people that look like you, people that are even from similar backgrounds that you're from. Even a few first steps before you get into actually finding a therapist, I want to suggest today, because I'm thankful for the ingenious people, because I couldn't do it. I'm not tech savvy, that put together apps that reach out and attempt to help people. And so I think that is amazing. That can be one of the first steps. And we'll talk about that today as we talk about resources for mental health, especially with people of color. I encourage you to find all the resources in your area. I encourage you, first and foremost, don't just go with the things that I tell you, because there may be all kinds of things available where you are. Like, for instance, a place that's very metropolitan, like New York City, it's going to be gobs and gobs of resources. Now, some of those resources you may have to ask around to find them, because they may be those gyms that are available, but not a lot of people know about, or the resources may be limited. So therefore, there are certain things they can do. And then there are other people they can connect you with. If you are more in a rural place, there may be limited resources, but the the blessing in the internet is that that's opened up a lot of people, even in rural areas, to have access to services they may not have had access to before. Okay, so I want to kind of touch on that. One thing I always encourage people to do when they're thinking about getting into receiving mental health services is specifically, what are you looking for? As a therapist, I'm gonna be upfront. That's gonna be one of the main questions you'll get after you get past. Well, hey, my name is um, the hey, I found you or whatever, whatever. So uh, what service is reaching out to people and getting more attention. But one thing is going to be, what do you come to therapy for? There are some things that are very difficult in trying to break that down. Because initially, when you meet someone, just a person, period, not just because they're a therapist, but just a person to person, you're trying to figure out, how do I open up and say I'm having an issue with something and I don't really know how to put words to it. I don't really know how to describe it, but I'm having an issue and it's causing difficulty in various areas of my life. One thing I encourage you to do is think about what those difficulties are you're facing. And instead of attempting to identify what the problem is first, because sometimes people come to therapy and they absolutely don't know the problem, but they know what areas are being affected. So if it is, my family relationships are being affected, my friendships are being impacted, um, and I don't know how to kind of express what's going on. Start there at what's being impacted first. Because what you can do there is begin to unravel. And then as you unravel, you'll start to identify other things that are impacted and then be better equipped to put words to what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. Um, some of the main things that I've noticed in my experience, not to say overall, but in my experience with people of color, especially, is trauma as a result of racism, which we touched on that a little bit last week. Trauma due to racism or racial influence violence, discrimination, anything that can be very, very traumatic, very traumatic. But the thing is with that word trauma, if we look at it, it's kind of being used a lot. So it's starting to, people are starting to desensitize to it. And that's a difficult thing. So the thing is, you have to put words to what it is that's been traumatic for you, how it's impacted you. Okay. In putting words to it, there's also the challenge to that fear. And we've talked about fear on many different kind of aspects over the course of this past year and how that comes into play. Well, the thing with fear and seeking out some type of assistance, even trying to break down what the concern is or what the main root of the problem or could be, is I don't want people to look at me like I'm crazy. Okay, I don't want you to think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I want to encourage you, take that off the front of your brain. Just wipe it. That is not the thought when people come seeking therapy or therapeutic services or supports. That is not the thought. The thought is always, 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 where can I help? Where can we start? When a person is attempting to help you find a start, there are many questions that are going to ask because, for one, that shows that they're trying to build a healthy rapport with you. Also, they're trying to make sure those services that are offered or resources that are identified meet exactly what you were seeking or as close as possible. Now, another thing, another issue that I've seen coming up a lot has been people that are having concerns with family, friends, supports due to their sexual preference, their sexuality. And that's a concern because, I mean, people have to, we as people, period, have to start accepting each other, where we are, how we identify, all of that, and just see us as people. Okay. So, in talking about the resources, one of the first resources I want to touch on is I've talked in passing about Psychology Today as a way to locate a therapist. Well, Psychology Today also has the option of what's considered a mental health assessment. It's 60 questions. And with those questions, you're thinking about the past 6 months. And it kind of looks at anxiety, stressors, worry, all of that. I encourage you, take that quiz. For one, I encourage you to take that quiz because it may help you in putting the words together to express to a person that you're possibly looking to be your therapist what's going on with you. Also, it helps you get a better understanding of where you are Because in this assessment, by no means at the end of it are you going to get a diagnosis and say, hey, this is your diagnosis. Call somebody and tell them you have this diagnosis. But it is going to give you a way to better break down how you're feeling, how often you're feeling like that, and what that impact is for you with your mental health. Excuse me, I feel like I want to sneeze. Jeez. Now, with this assessment, it's not an end all be all. So, with uh, the assessment, when you take it, don't say, hey, I'm going to print this out, take this to my first therapy appointment. I've done all my intake stuff. We can just get started. That's not really how that goes. There'll be additional assessments that the therapist may give you based on what their initial impression of your possible diagnosis could be, and depending on what your presenting concerns are. Okay. With those things, one thing that has been an obstacle to get over, which is quite understandable as a person of color myself, is the diagnosis process. Because what we've always been told is that, a label stays with you for the rest of your life and it's going to keep you from getting jobs, certain clearances, certain access to things. That's why I don't talk about mental health. Many people have experienced something like that when they've talked to someone else about what is going on with their mental health. However, your mental health provider has a confidentiality requirement. Okay. And in that confidentiality requirement, they're required to hold your mental health concerns private unless you're identifying you want to harm yourself or you want to harm someone else. Okay. Those records are to be private. Also, the way um, mental health records are requested usually or if there's a concern about negligence or inappropriate care, things like that. But don't allow yourself to think, oh dang, people are going to label me. Unless you're going around telling people you have a certain diagnosis or you're going to therapy, who knows? Who really knows that you're in services? And really, I hope that we're at a place where we're moving past that stigma of, well, dang, I don't want people to think this about me or think that I'm less than or limited or damaged or anything like that. Mental health is something that every single person on this earth deals with. Some people have better times than others. Some people have more difficult times than others. And just because you're having a difficult time, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's called life. It's part of your existence. So with that, I encourage you all to try out the mental health assessment. That'll help you get your words kind of wrapped around and help you with the information that you share if you're looking for a therapist. Also on Psychology Today, at the very top, it says find a therapist. There, you type in your zip code. So wherever you're at, you type in your zip code, it'll start narrowing down therapists overall according to that zip code. Okay. Then at the very top of that, before you get to the pictures of the therapist, it looks at issues. So then it kind of breaks down what concerns, so you can find someone based on if they have a specialty with any of the concerns you identify. Next, it's insurance. So if you have a certain insurance, um, they can go based on that. Now, I want to tell you also, if you do not have insurance, talk to the provider's office and ask them if they know of any coverage that could possibly help you with your mental health care. Sometimes that will be through this form of state assistance. Sometimes they will work on a sliding scale with you and you can pay out of pocket. Okay. So don't allow that to be a barrier for you. You can also look at people based on gender. And they have three. They have women, men, or non-binary. That way, if you feel more comfortable talking to someone who's non-binary, you can identify them up front. Okay. They also have types of therapy. If you've looked up types of therapy, or if you've been to therapy before and certain things have worked for you better, they have that availability. Also, if you want someone that specifically focuses on your age group, they have that. Or if you're looking for someone for maybe your children or something, they have that also. At the very end, it says more. And when you click that tab, it'll give you a drop down where you can identify people based on ethnicity. So if you are Hispanic or a Latinx and you prefer someone who's Hispanic or Latinx, just click on that and it'll pull up all the people that identify as that, as Hispanic or Latinx. Also, it has sexuality. What if you are LGBTQ plus and you prefer to meet with someone who identifies the same way? You can do that. Identify language, even faith-based. They have that section as well. So it's a very, 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 very awesome tool and very, very helpful. Very helpful. Well, now I want to take a brief break. I want to make sure that you, before we go to break, that you listen to um, the featured artist, which is on Friday from 5:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. And this week's featured artist is Bobby Brown with New Edition. If y'all went to that concert they had, that was the business, huh? Also, every Sunday through Friday from 8 p.m. to midnight, please tune in and listen to Whisper Softly, which plays love songs on the Batchelor News Radio Network. We'll be back right quick.
Gifted Hands of Fun Summer Camp is a fun summer camp for kids ages 5 through 12, Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Gifted Hands of Fun Summer Camp provides lunch and snacks daily. Your child will enjoy activities like field trips weekly, music and dance classes, biblical teachings, games, basketball drills, flag football, face painting, and so much more. The first 20 kids to register will register for only $25 per child, so sign up today because slots are limited. Weekly rates, sibling discounts, and transportation are available too. For more info, call 919-435-4490. That's 919-435-4490. Sign up today.
Well, that camp sounds like they're having fun before it even starts. I might need to go send myself. All right, so welcome back to Emerging Needs with Keisha. Um, Now, after finishing up kind of about psychology today, there are also settings where you can look for teletherapy, where you can look for psychiatrists if you feel like medication would be an option that you would want. Um, with the psychiatrist option, just be mindful that across the country, even with the therapists across the country, there is a large increase in people seeking out mental health services. So some of those people may have dates that are like a couple of weeks out from the day that you call. So really kind of be mindful of not having an expectation that you'll be able to get in tomorrow or this time next week. Sometimes people have large waiting lists. Also, especially with the psychiatrist and the assessments that they will have to do, as well as coordinate with your medical provider, they may be very mindful about. You need to be very mindful about services that may be pushed out even up to a month, especially if maybe you were on medications previously and you want to get back to those medications. They also have a tab for support groups. So let's say some of those um, therapists that you've called, or a therapist or a psychiatrist that you've called, has a waiting list. I encourage you go to the groups tab and identify a group that could be a support for you until you can get into therapy. Okay. They have all kinds of groups: coping skill groups, anger management groups, domestic violence survivor groups, um, sexual uh, abuse survivor groups, parenting groups, groups that are focused on men's issues, women's issues, groups that are faith based, groups that are focused on trauma recovery, groups that are focused on oh my gosh, all kinds of issues, racial trauma, all those things. Okay, they have groups for everything. Anything you can go to therapy for, there are groups for. I encourage those groups also because it gives you another way to connect with people that are dealing with the same concerns that you have going on in your life. And it's so amazing when people come together that are dealing with a common concern, how just hearing someone else's story and how they bounce back, how that can be such an encouragement and a support for you that it pushes you to do a little bit more every time you get discouraged. Like, oh, no, I remember the story that I heard in group, or I remember how that person kept pushing and they succeeded. So it gives you another layer of personal support. Now, one thing that is newer, and I say newer, but it's not brand new, is the app for, oh goodness, for people of color. And it is based on the fact that racial trauma and mental health concerns can look a little bit different for people of color because there's that added layer of racism. Okay. And all aspects of racism, plus whatever you may be dealing with in your own mental health processes, and how those uh, difficulties of racial injustices and racial concerns can be even more pressure atop those mental health concerns that are already there, or even cause them to be a lot more intense. Okay. So some of the apps I'm going to tell you about, I've looked up a few of them. Sorry, I feel like I just want to sneeze. I apologize, y'all. Some of them I've looked up and gone on, and they're interesting. It's awesome. So I really like the fact that, as I said before, I'm not a tech savvy person, but I like the fact that people have put in the thought and the power and the focus into putting some of these apps together. Now, what I'm going to do is tell you about the app, and I'll also tell you the founder's name because I also noticed that in my Google Play Store, so I'm an Android user, um, there are several apps that are under the that have very similar names. And if you don't know the founder, you could actually go into one of those other apps. Um, I'll keep my comments to myself about how I feel about that. But I feel like, hey, if this is my name, you should be able to get it. But either way, the first app is Ayana, and it's Ayana. And this one was founded by Eric Coley, Coly. Um, it gives very it gives you opportunity to answer different questionnaires, and then based on your response to those questionnaires it can suggest therapists. Now the thing with that is I love the questionnaires because, like I said before, it gives you a ability to have a starting point with that therapist that it may refer you to, because those responses are then able to be connected to those therapists or sent to those therapists that they have as a referral base. Um, with this, it says it has more than 200 clinicians that are available via texting, calls, and video. The only thing that I do not like is that it does not have a larger base of therapists, possibly. Hopefully, by now, maybe they're getting more people signed up to be clinicians. But then also, my wonder is, with the therapists, are they in a concentrated area, like one certain state or a certain part of the country? Now, if there's a therapist that is there that is dually licensed in other states, that's awesome. But even still, it's a good resource. So even if you go in and answer the questionnaires and kind of get some feedback, if none of those therapists are in your area, I'm sure they'll probably refer you back to Psychology Today and have you go through there. There's another one called Shine, and this is created by Mariah Lidey, Lidey, and Naomi. I'm not guaranteed of Naomi's last name. It's HIRABAYASHI. This one is a self-care app. Focuses on rest, healing, and personal growth, especially during difficult times, stressors. So it's trying to help you refocus on what to do for self. Okay, personal mindfulness. Now, it is a Black-owned app. It's created in 2016. I love that. With this app, you're going to get they give you different toolkits. They have community forums. They offer morning inspiration texts and guided meditations. Okay. Very, 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 very awesome. I When I went into the app, there were a few that gave me trial time that were free, and I did not identify what the pricing was. But I encourage you to go check them out, and if the pricing is within your budget, to go ahead and sign up for it, because anything is a help. Even getting a random text message throughout the day can help you just realize, you know what, I'm getting stuck in this cycle before that has been very difficult for me. What do I need to do to get unstuck? So very, very helpful. Minds of Culture is another one. And this one is focused on connecting therapy and faith-based lifestyle. This one was created by mental health clinician Dr. Chanda, Chanda Reynolds, Reynolds. And this one focuses on stress and trauma in the Black community, as well as it brings together the religious portion and mental health. I encourage you to check it out. And when people think religious, I know the question is going to be what religion? It is Bible based, so it is Christian based. Okay. And it also gives you a mood journal that comes with it. So you can kind of type on your phone, or if you have the app downloaded to a laptop or a computer, type on there. I encourage people to always, always, always keep a journal. Always, whether it's digital or handwritten, do it. Because then you can better identify cycles that you're going through, triggers that you may be experiencing. I'm gonna go ahead and mention one more. It's called The Safe Place, and this is created by Jasmine, Jasmin, Pierre, Pierre, and it's a suicide survivor app. So if you've ever had any suicidal ideation, attempts, anything, even any other mental health concerns, this app is really, really good. And it focuses on mental health in the Black community. Very, very awesome. So check those out. Check out Psychology Today. Identify resources in your community, and all you need to do is just go. The first thing to do is just go. Don't talk yourself out of it. Go. If it's an online forum, go and watch how the conversation goes. Check it out. If it is a video forum, go and just listen. If it's someplace to go physically, and go and sit and listen, and then you'll be able to get a feel for it. Well, today I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope today's discussion has been and will continue to be helpful to you in your life's journey. Remember, if you miss a show or any part of a show, you can go to thebatchelornews.airtime.pro and tune in. And you have been listening to Emerging Ease with Keisha on the Batchelor News Radio Network. See y'all next week.
Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you for taking such a time as this to participate in your personal improvement with Emerging Ease. I'm Keisha, your host. Remember that in everything, there's an opportunity to learn and grow. If you are experiencing a difficult time, please reach out to the National Crisis Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. And I look forward to hearing from you next week on Emerging Ease with Keisha.